Yo, what is up? First full slate of NBA games.
Oh,
We got a little taste, little teaser last night. The games are pretty good. Yeah, I mean, for the
yeah.
most part, uh, that Boston Sixers game was really good. Prop wise, I mean, a lot of the stuff we really liked from yesterday hit pretty well.
hmm
I mean, your
hmm
Harden points calls, dude, the
First
studs
half.
in that game were amazing. Yeah, hitting the first half, Embiid assists, Horford assists. That were tough, man. I'm not gonna sit up here and cry about potential assists and foul trouble. I do feel like Horford will play a decent amount. There were some weird rotations in honestly all those games. But we're not here to talk about those. You know, we do recap streams on the main fantasy channel. We'll do those talking through the whole games. Let's get right into it. Looking at today's slate, massive slate. This feels. I mean, it was opening night last night, but I feel like this feels like NBA
Yeah.
is back. You know, when you've got like multiple games at once. You know, throughout the night. I'm pretty pumped, and we get to start it off. It's not just a homer thing. Magic
Let's do it.
Pistons are, for the first game up here and first game right here. You can see on the screen where we're looking at the lineups. And lineup wise, we'll start on the Orlando side. Pretty straightforward. A lot of these injuries we were aware of. I think the biggest surprise is maybe not like recent surprise, but Suggs being good to go. I know that was kind of like an initial injury concern in
Yeah.
the preseason, but as far as Fultz is concerned, we were expecting him to be out. Gary Harris, Isaac, Mo Wagner is out. But we're just going to look at lineups for these games. We'll go game by game, so we'll come back to these. So we'll start here with on the Pistons side. No Bagley, unfortunate. It's a longer term injury. No Burks as well. He's been hurt, and no Livers. So not. I think Bagley and Livers, I think, was going to be a bigger part of the rotation than people were expecting. But I don't think massive impacts. I think Bagley's probably the bigger one for the bigs. But yeah, we'll take a look here. Let's go. We'll go game by game. So we'll go lineup by lineup before we head into the game previews. We're gonna fly through pretty quick. You know, there's a ton of games to get through, so we're gonna talk about some of our favorite stuff, some of the stud lines that we do like. So right
Yeah.
here on the Pistons, I want to call out and just kind of look at his lines all together. But Cade's a guy who, to be completely honest, has struggled shooting a little bit in the preseason. It's not
Yep.
something that like really concerns me because I feel really comfortable that Cade will be a 20-point guy this season. So this
Yeah.
line feels accurate. First game of the year against the Magic. Do you like this line? Just kind of the Magic matchup for Cade, and it's 21 and a half. You got 22 and a half here on Underdog. Do you like Cade here? Do you like him elsewhere? Or are you going somewhere else in this game?
So yeah, I mean, remembering last year, right? Not much change for the guards for Orlando. Orlando's guard defense wasn't the greatest, so you like to target the points guys against the Orlando guards. I'm a little worried about Cade just starting a little slow as far as percentages and efficiency go, based
Yeah.
on what we saw in the preseason and we saw last season. Again, like you said, I think he'll get to that point where he's more like back in the rhythm, what
Mhm.
have you. Um, that being said, I probably don't. I just think it's a little high for the first game. I think
Yeah.
it's a little bit too much hype. I probably just fade it. I honestly like Jaden Ivey more at 10.5.
It
Now,
is really funny. Yeah.
I'm not trying to like be biased, but again, going back to preseason, and preseason isn't everything. But Ivy was very aggressive. We talked about this before. Very aggressive, played with the starting units,
Yeah.
and again, he's still playing against the weaker defensive aspect of this Orlando Magic team. And I think Ivy's points line at 10.5 is way more achievable with how aggressive I think he'll be. And alongside Cade, who is going to be more looking to get him involved than vice versa.
Yeah.
So Ivy being half the points, Cade's more likely to look at Ivy than the reciprocal.
Yeah.
I really like Ivy at 10.5. And again, I know the rookie struggles with starting the seasons, and that's very fair. But this is such a low line that he can go 3 for 11 and cover this, right?
Yeah.
So I really like this Ivy line the most out of the Pistons guys. I know you probably. I'll toss this over to you, but I'm
Yeah.
surprised you haven't talked about Beef Stew yet.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I
might
will
be
say
along with him.
I think Ivy for sure is one of those guys who we saw be very aggressive in the preseason. And real quick to kind of wrap up Cade, I think his points line is a little scary. Yes, the kind of sluggish start that we could see and what we've seen in the preseason, but he's surrounded by shooters, one through
Yeah.
five now with Beef Stew, channeling some Steph Curry in the preseason, man. He had really good shooting clips from three in the preseason. I
Yeah.
don't want to overhype. I'm not telling everyone to go, smash some Stew lines, but man, he's shot a ton from three. So I just think when you bring in Bogdanovich, you have Jaden Ivey, who's willing to be aggressive offensively and will shoot the ball. You have Isaiah Stewart there as well, and I haven't even mentioned Sadiq Bey, who loves to pull threes as well. So it's really interesting for Cade specifically because he's one of those guys who I think is the best offensive player on the team, but he's very good at getting other guys involved, and he's really surrounded by, I don't want to get too homery, but what I expect to be a pretty good, or at least 1 through 5, very, very decent 3-point shooting team. So Stu at 8.5, I think is a very appealing line. You see the values on the over. I think that's a big nod, not to just like how aggressive Stu could be offensively, or at least more aggressive than what we've seen in the past, but also no Bagley. Right. So we talked about the big rotation being a little muddied. I mean, there's talks of maybe, Jalen Duren's more involved in the rotation, but I feel really confident that Beef Stew's going to be, because we saw it last season, right? Like, yes, he was splitting with Olynyk a decent amount, but it's hard for me to look at what defensively they're going to have to do against the Magic and not think that Isaiah Stewart is, a big part of that, right? With Banchero, Wendell Carter, Bamba for stretches.
Yeah, I think he actually matched, like, for being an undersized center, I think he actually matches up pretty well against this team. I know Bamba's pretty big, but like they either have guys that are long and can stretch the floor, or an undersized guy like Paolo, who's not the tallest center either. And so I think Beastu he's athletic enough to spread, guard the perimeter for Wendell Carter or Bamba or Banchero. He's tough enough to kind of box out and body those taller guys in him. It's not like a big mismatch, like where it's like an Embiid or these, an Anthony Davis, guys that are tall and big and then really struggle with Stu. I think Stu can kind of play well in this as an undersized center in this matchup.
Right, and I like Jalen Duren defensively, but it's kind of one of those, like, even in those matchups at this point, not that Bagley's a great defender, but just in pure guys they have, right, rotations they can use with no Livers and no Bagley, I feel pretty comfortable about Stu, having good minutes in the season opener for sure. Yo, what's up in the chats? You don't do prize picks no more. So we are looking at the underdog lines. Underdog, we got the tracker down here. If you guys want 100% deposit match up to $100, $10 minimum deposit using code Canyon, you're about to see it fly by. Get a match there. But we're using, we've got this site here that has all different lines. So we're comparing these underdog lines with a lot of sportsbook lines. That's something we've done in the past as well. So you'll get to see, a lot of different books, right? But we are looking at the underdog lines as far as conversationally. But actually, I like, it's kind of funny. I like those two lower lines for the Pistons. I think, I could easily see Bogdanovich hitting his line, but it just seems pretty high for me. That just feels like a normal, Bogdanovich line. And yes, I just think the Pistons are one of those teams where it wouldn't surprise me night in and night out if there's a bunch of different guys who are in that kind of 15, 16, 17 point range. And I just feel a little more comfortable with the lower lines I get for Beef Stew and Jaden Ivey, who I think are going to be big parts of the rotation and offensively could shoot a decent amount. I'd be curious. We can look at Bogdanovich's 3-point lines because I think that would be an interesting look. I
think it'll be a higher scoring game too. I know the line is at
defensively for sure,
which isn't low, but none of these teams are great defensively, and there's gonna be at least really good opportunity for a high scoring game. I'm not gonna, both these teams are bad defensively, but both these teams aren't, the pinnacle of efficiency on offense. But I think the looks will be there, and there'll be better looks than other games. It's not going to be as tight of a defensive game. So the line's at 217. I like it to go over if both teams can shoot the league average.
Yeah.
But it's again, it's the first season. I mean, we saw last night. We saw a big game in the first game with Sixers, Boston, two very good defensive teams. We saw them really start to up the pace. I think that was another thing that's going to be interesting to keep an eye out for all these teams is, the pace. Boston's step up their pace big time already with this first game. They usually weren't as high of a pace team. So that's another thing to check out and keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think, too, like you had mentioned, I know both of these teams have made, some improvement defensively, you could argue, but I still think two very, not great defensive teams. I will
Subpar,
say,
yeah,
yeah,
probably.
we saw that with the Pistons in the preseason. A lot of moments where it was just like they just could not stop anyone, and I mean we saw
Yeah.
that a lot last season as well. I think they have players who can do good things defensively, but I think
Oh yeah.
overall. I don't see them as like a strong defensive team. So with that being said, any of these Magic guys you like, I know it's kind of interesting looking at a Wendell Carter line where, you know, you've got the hype machine Banchero with his, you know, debut. Is it just one of
Yeah.
those like even though it's a rookie, he just feels like the kind of rookie that could really demand a decent amount of offensive usage even in his first game that you're just not excited about like a Wendell Carter?
Yeah, I think it's more also just Bancaro. I think he's a little low at his line. I think
Yeah.
he's a guy, it's the number one overall pick. I think he's a guy that's going to go out there and want to, make a case in point. I think Orlando's going to want to run a lot of stuff through him. It'll be a good game, first game of the season against a meh defense
Right.
where they can kind of see what he can give you. And 13 and a half, 14 and a half, I like both those lines a lot. I don't hate the Wendell Carter one. Again, it's another team that's just so spread out all over the floor with their lines.
Look at these Magic lines. They're all exactly
Yeah.
the same. They're
Yeah,
all
so
like 14, 15, 16.
it is a little scary. But
Even
I
Suggs.
would
Yeah.
probably give the nod to Boncaro, and yeah, I like Suggs and Anthony with Fultz being out and Gary Harris being out. The
Mhm.
lack of depth there all of a sudden. They still have a couple guys there that they'll run through the rotation, but Suggs at 12 and a half is really interesting. I don't know if the injury still concerns you at all, lingering or anything. Cole
I think
Anthony,
it's more of and I think Suggs will improve from what we saw last season. Not I mean Detroit's a good matchup right defensively, but I
yeah,
think I'm honestly I feel more scared about Suggs offensively and his efficiency than I do Banchero in his first game in the NBA. Like is that weird to say? I know it sounds kind of crazy,
no,
but
yeah,
uh,
no, it's not. I'm really curious. This is the personal Pistons fan speaking, but I'm I wouldn't be shocked if Cade and Ivy had pretty good defensive performance tonight.
oh
I
yeah,
know Cade
yeah,
has a good defensive bag in him, obviously. Ivy can stick with these quicker guards, and he
yeah,
showed some good
very
defensive effort
athletic.
preseason. And so I'm going to be really interested to see how they handle the two also younger, less experienced guards of the Magic.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you just go towards Boncaro and Wendell
Yep.
here, or
Yeah,
maybe Franz.
I think Bancaro, oddly enough, is my favorite, which I know is pretty crazy. I don't think it's like a favorite where I would include it in like one of my favorite plays like of the night. But just in
No,
this
yeah,
game on the Magic side specifically, Bancaro is probably my favorite points play.
Ray.
Which kind of says all you need to know about where the Magic are at, just because you just do not want to play rookies in their first games. Even for the first stretch of the season, it's scary. But I do feel pretty good offensively about what's
Yeah.
up Ray, what's up Renzi. Feels good to be back,
It's
man. NBA's back.
it's so funny because we've been talking about how rookies get off to slow starts, which is true.
Hmm.
But man, I really like the two rookie lines in this game. I really like
They're
14
low.
for
I mean,
Boncaro
I
and
think
they're so low, yeah.
the Ivy this 10 and a half, 11 and a half. That's what I would have guessed even before the preseason, because I feel like he was kind of solidified into his role, and I think I saw enough in the preseason to say, hey, I'll take Jaden Ivey to score 11. I feel pretty good about that. 11, 12.
Yeah.
And it's twofold, right? It's like the confidence in the rotation. Like I think there's no question about that. Not that there really was, but it was nice to see through the preseason. But I think the biggest thing for me is he was really aggressive. He was good, and he was you getting to the line too, and shooting well from it, which are all massive things you wanted to see from Ivy. Now, real quick, I'm going to peek over to assists. Let's just take a look at some of these peripherals. I've got Cole Anthony up here. He's got the 5 flat line. He's really tough for me offensively. Like there's a lot of like Magic weapons where I think there's like a chance he could like easily cover this. I just don't know if I feel super confident about Cole Anthony being able to hit that. I like the spot because I think that it is one of those games where I'm not as excited about like the guards scoring, like you had talked about with the guard defense. But any of these other assist lines before we kind of sneak over to rebounds, there's only a couple up on Underdog here, right? You've got Bogdanovich.
Yeah.
You
I
got Wagner a little bit higher.
I kind of I like Cade's assists more than his points right now. I think I'm gonna fade Cade tonight though. as
Yeah.
sad as that
His
sounds. I
his lines are
want to make
just they're kind of close to like mid-season or late season with Jeremy Grant lines, right? Where it was like the 20
yeah,
line, even without him for some of those games to start. So it's kind of like, yes, we really like Cade this season, but I feel like you're kind of,
right
I'm,
out the gate expecting
yeah,
a midseason form.
yeah. These lines are kind of where I expect his like totals to be for the season, which I know sounds stupid to say, and like, yes, of course they're going to be close, but for me, it's just kind of one of those like I don't feel great enough, especially with what we saw in the preseason. No hate to Cade, I love Cade, and I think he's going to be great this year, but I just think there's better value, and that's kind of what you're looking for in these player props, right? You're not just looking for guys you like on the season. Any rebounding lines? We've only got a couple here. We've got Wagner up, Ben Caro at 6 flat, Cade at 5.5.
I really like Cole Anthony at 4.5. I know that's not an underdog right now. But if you keep an eye on Cole's rebound line at underdog, I like that. He's one of the best rebounding guards that we have in the league, honestly. And 4.5 is too low for him. So I would expect that to go up too. If it's on underdog, I think it might go to.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a flat, I mean, he's got a flat on some other, and just kind of where the books have him, I could see that being there.
Which is crazy because Bucks have him at plus money on the over, and I actually really like that value just in general. But as far as what we see here on underdog, Wendell Carter's at 10 flat.
I don't mind a Cade.
Yeah, Cade at 5.5 is pretty nice actually.
Yeah, it's a nice line. It's probably one of my favorite lines of his, as far as like I feel like he can be right there at it. The assist lines were kind of on the higher end, even though I like him assist wise.
Yeah, no,
that's probably
I
it for me. I don't think any of these are like super appealing.
Yeah, I back that. I think Cade's rebound line is probably my favorite out of his 3 main stat lines. So, but yeah, we got a big slate. Do you want to go to threes here quick?
Yeah, let's go 3 super quick. It pains my heart that I don't get a beef stew, which probably makes sense because he probably shouldn't be at 1.5. You can kind of see the way these books have the line at that minus 150, minus 180, 200, the pinnacle line there. So. Yeah, I'm excited to see. It would be my play of the night if Stu had a 0.5 line. I'm really excited about that. You don't want to get too overhyped, but it's just been such a focal point of the preseason for him to be able to spread the floor, and he's backed it up.
Him generally too. And we saw it last season towards the end of the season. It was definitely a thing they wanted him to do more, and he's shown that he can take that role.
Yeah,
he's pretty efficient at it. Like the shot looks good, the form looks good.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I like that too. Ivy 1.5, not loving it. I think.
It's nice that he was willing to shoot. That was kind of the big thing. I think as far as like looking at underdog for here, Bogdanovich is fine. I don't love it. There's going to be other plays I like more. And Cade too. It's a good line for Cade, that 1.5. But I think what we talked about offensively, I think this feels more like a facilitation game for Cade. And we just didn't see great efficiency in the preseason. So, what's up? Jimmer Range, really like Giddey, assist and rebound. Yeah, we're gonna start heading through these. I think we can move past this game. I think the ones we kind of liked, funny enough, were the rookie points lines, just kind of where they were at. But let's we can skip around. We don't have a boss in our ear telling us what to do. So let's go to OKC. Minnesota here, and we're just going to pull up the lineups here. We'll kind of scroll down to that one. You can see Minnesota OKC, Shea active. The nice thing about OKC, what's up?
I said, what is it at? Like 13.5, and it is. And I said, I am the book. Sorry.
No, you're good. Shea, Giddey, Dort, Poku, Earl. Nothing massive on the injury front for this one. 10.5 spread. This one's in Minnesota. 225.5 over under. Decent total. We're back to the big OKC spread games, man. The scary ones we had last season, where we liked a lot of these props, but you were just like, man, are they going to be able to stay in these games? It was the assists and rebounds. That's a nice Giddey combo. You said you peeked at the line. It was
it's 13.5. I do like that.
Yeah.
I just think, man, if Gobert is going to dominate a matchup, I think it's against Poku and Robinson Earl. You got an undersized big and a skinny big. And I think Gobert and Towns, this could be a heyday for them. I think this is a nightmare matchup. But we'll say last year, remember how sneaky good defensively OKC was, and they have a lot of people they can throw at you, a lot of fresh legs. So I wouldn't be surprised if they give Minnesota a little bit of trouble because they've been wrote off. They've been wrote off a
Yeah, so you
lot,
just pick one.
and yeah, I'll pick one. Wrote off a lot, and I think defensively they always surprise people. But there's just no way Gobert doesn't dominate the glass here this game, right?
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I think the funny thing about players in new places, right? I think there's kind of like the whole like, what's the usage gonna look like? You know, this guy, is he gonna be able to? The nice thing about like Rudy is like they brought him in to like be a defensive presence who, you know, is just a monster rebounder, and that's what he's gonna do. Um, so
Yeah,
right
his
here, he's got I don't know. I guess
line's
we're not seeing lines
pretty
up
high.
for a lot of these. Maybe this was a farce to do the skip ahead. I'm not seeing the underdogs. I know this one's a later one. So let's go back to 7 o'clock
Yeah,
here.
we can still, and we can also just talk about the lines that are here because underdog will most likely have that or one higher.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
kind of make some foresight there. But Gobert at 13.5, I think Vegas just agrees that he probably should dominate this game on the glass. And so his line's already pretty high. I probably just fade it now. 14's kind of like the sweet spot
Yeah,
number.
that's just
Like,
like where he should be at, you know. It's one of those
yeah,
like very fair lines, you know.
yeah, it's not like you're getting any crazy value or stealing any lines there. So I would
Yeah.
just probably lean away from that. I mean, it's such a big
Um
slate.
yeah, we're gonna
So
go
many,
to Pacers Wizards here. This is one that has some underdog lines
oh,
up.
yes.
Injury wise, Kispert's out, Dice is out. Nothing too massive for this one. I know Smith is a game time decision.
Yep.
I think from what I've seen, it sounds like he's going to play. I don't know if you have anything more on that. Um, but I think this is going to be pretty. What's up?
I think he'll play. I was gonna say
Yeah.
I think he'll play. It's knee soreness. I think he should be
Right.
fine.
Yep. And so for this one, it's the debut of our boy. Um,
Allie?
yeah. I don't know if I want to call it a debut. It just like feels like a debut, right? It just feels like it's
Fantasy,
his time. You know, the
breakout
fantasy
debut.
breakout. This is it against Washington. And you know his underdog line. A little bit higher on the point side. I think Hallie's one of those guys where I do expect a scoring increase, but
Yep.
I don't think points is where I would want to look at, even though I do expect him to be. I think he's being priced at where I expect him to be this season, right? Closer to 18, 19. That was the higher end of what we saw last season without Brogdon
Yep.
in those
Yep.
games. So I just kind of, while I've got him up here, I think the Hallie lines you kind of look at, right? You know, the assist lines, which were pretty
Yeah, and
massive last year. He's at 9.5. He's getting the assist respect for a Pacers
yeah.
team that moves the ball a ton. Do you like Hallie, or do you feel like he's getting some sportsbook respect with the lines?
No, I was gonna say I think it's something similar to like what we saw with Cade and talked about with Cade. I think it's these lines are at what we expect, mid-season form to possibly be, and so I don't know if it's worth taking the first opener game for him to already be in that mid-season form.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I love it just because of how high it is, right? I mean,
Mm.
we expect him to be closer to 20 than he was last year and around a 10 assist guy, but it's like, is he going to come out of the gate and do that instantly? It is a decent matchup again. Wizards backcourt defense isn't the best.
Yeah.
And we know the Pacers passed the most out of anybody in the NBA last year. So I think I would lean assists. Just because I think Halliburton again is a facilitator first before scorer, and they have a lot of different guys that they might want to test out and see what they can do, like Ben Mathurin, Duarte back and involved, Buddy Hield still.
Mm.
So even the bigs like Jalen Smith, first full season here with the Pacers. So I think I'd probably just stay away from the 17.5 points, maybe more towards the 9.5 assists. But I don't think those are going to be my favorite plays of the
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. I agree. I think those are two kind of like we talk about this right on Underdog where you have lines, you have value on the over, value on the under. Those two, even though they seem like there's value on one side, they just feel right. They just feel accurate. Like Hallie's probably going to be right at 17 around there, right at like
Yeah.
around 9 assists, right? So it's just
Yeah.
I don't think anything about the matchup or the situation looks like it's, you really have good value on the over. Any of
One.
these, we'll go points here. Any of these points lines
Okay.
jumping out to you?
There's another assist line that I like that we can go back to later, but for points, the new Nuggets guys are interesting. 11.5, 10.5. I don't. It's just very up in the air as to how involved they're going to be in the season right off the gate as well. So maybe just fade them as well. New situation stuff.
Right. And you're saying new
Uh,
Nuggets guys from the Nuggets.
right from the Nuggets to the
Right.
Wizards. Sorry.
No, you're
Um,
good. I was just clarifying.
18.5 for Porzingis isn't terrible. I like it more than Kuzma, honestly. I could see this
Yeah.
being a 20-point Porzingis game.
We didn't.
That might be one. Beal, obviously, I always like Beal. I was going to
Right.
say I like Beal's assists
Oh,
tonight,
okay.
actually. A little strange, but I like him to get 6 or more assists tonight. I think, he's at that point where he's just, I think with these new additions here as well, he's going to be more facilitative this season. He's got new weapons. He's got, KP there for the first time this season with him.
Mhm.
You got Barton, you got Johnny Davis, the rookie, you got Monty Morris. There's a lot of different guys here. And I think at this stage, I don't know if you saw the stuff he was saying. He was like, I just want to win, get to the playoffs, win that series,
Yeah.
get to the next series, win he's in the very much whatever it takes to win mentality. And I think with these new weapons around, I think he's going to be sharing the ball a lot more this season. And so 5.5 here right now, we've seen him put up 6, 7 assists here and there when he was healthy. Obviously, we know he could score, but I think 5.5 is a very good line. And you could tell here with all these different book lines, it's kind of all over the place, right? So I
Yeah.
don't think people are really set in stone as to what this is going to look like. I'm just going to go ahead and plant my flag here. I really like the over at 5.5 assists for Beal here.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't get to see. This is kind of one of those, and we've got a lot of these, right? A lot of new situations, but this is one of those like new situations where we didn't see any of Beal Porzingis together. But even with that being said, I mean, this is Beal's team, So I think offensively, I do feel pretty good about the usage.
Yeah.
I like Beal assists and points. I think the point signs I know feels like a little high, but I kind of like both of these.
Maybe you go PRA then, or
Yeah.
DNA.
Yeah, he's at that 23.5. That feels like a pretty good line for Beal. But yeah, I like that call. I like assists. I like it a lot more. I will say I feel like Kuzma. He kind of feels like the odd man out offensively. I know
Yeah.
he's still gonna have games where he gets his, but as far as from a like sports betting prop, that perspective, I think I definitely do lean Beal and Porzingis and kind of their peripherals.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly I like the under for Kuzma at 17.5
Mm.
underdog.
Yeah,
I think
it's where the value is
books
on the
have a
books.
favorite. Yeah, values on the books is on the under. So again, like you said, I don't. I think I would be shocked if Kuzma averages over 17 points this season. If he does, they're going to the playoffs because I think KP is going to get his own. He'll be closer to 20.
Right.
Beal's going to be around 20.
It's
You
how
have a
many
lot of
games
impact
KP
guys.
misses.
Yeah, that too. But like you said, I think Kuzma is going to be like for lack of a better terms, like a Toby, where it's just like he's got his games here and there where he's just hitting and
Right.
he's on. The Wizards are good, but I don't think he's going to get enough usage consistently to be
Yeah.
at 8
And
a game.
even without Beal in games, where it was him and KP at the beginning, like his lines were like 20, right? Like it wasn't like a massive jump up from where he's at right here. So I
Right.
definitely do
Expecting
kind of
18 already.
right. Now it is, we have to kind of preface. I think the reason I don't love the under is it's the Pacers. And we just saw the
High scoring
Pacers
game.
defensively be a part of
Yeah.
so many high scoring bouts. And I think that's why I do tend to lean more towards like KP and Beal overs, is because I think, the Pacers games, right? You look at this game and it's 226 total, which doesn't feel massive, right? We've got this Hawks. I mean, this is prime. Hawks over here. You can kind of preview. This one's at a
Hawks
234.
Rockets.
Yeah, that's just like,
So,
okay, hard to compare games to that one as from a pace perspective. But the Pacers were a part of a ton of, 240
yeah.
total games, just kind of
Yeah.
110, 120 high scoring games. And I think if they can keep this one close, which I think they can,
No, that's a good point.
I definitely lean more towards the Beal overs. But
Overs.
I think Kuzma is definitely a fade more than he's an over, even in the game
Sure.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I'm cool to. We can kind of keep this rolling. If anyone in the chat has questions or props they like specifically, I'm cool to kind of keep this rolling and just kind of talk about some of the key guys. I think for me, I don't know if you want to spend any time on the other Pacers guys. I think the only guy who I'm seeing on here is Buddy Hield, who is very, very hit or miss offensively. There were a couple times I liked him when you were looking at games without Brogdon, and you had some injuries to the Pacers guys last season. It's an okay line. He's got the 16 and a half, but it's so hit or miss with a guy like Buddy.
Yeah, he's just a guy that I'm not day one. I'm not looking to put any money on. I don't know how involved he's going to be day one, let alone throughout the whole
Yeah, I
season.
think I
Day-to-day
think
basis.
I think he will. Like you just look at the roster and you anticipate he's still going to be one of those guys that's probably still going to get his shots. But Ben Mathurin looks really freaking good, man. I would not
Yeah,
surprise me if sooner rather than later he is very involved offensively. Yeah.
yep.
And yo, what's up, Austin in the chat? What is Monty assists? Yeah, I think it's these guys we talked about. There's some kind of tough. So we're not seeing an underdog line. It would probably be maybe like a 4 flat, or you could get that. Maybe they give you that 3.5. I don't know if I love it. I'm a big Monty Morris guy, and I know it feels like a different, maybe a better situation for him because he's not playing with Jokic, right? He's a tough guy offensively to have a traditional point guard play with. But I think for me, I really feel like the ball is just going to be in Beal, KP, Kuz's hands a decent amount more. I don't know if I'm in love with the first game taking Amani like over 4 for him to like get 5, which is where I guess the line would be at looking at the
Yeah,
sportsbook lines.
I mean, if it's at 3.5 on underdog, you can get good value
Oh
there,
yeah,
obviously. And I wouldn't hate that 4 assists. But again, yeah, it's tough going for the new guy in the new situation first game of the season. But
yeah. And then real quick
you
before we move on, Porzingis to get 2 assists. Yeah, so this is another one that we're not seeing, but yeah, this one could be a 2 flat, right? You see all this value, like this -165. When you're seeing this, I mean, it's tough to take those on those books, but we don't have to get into that. Yeah, I think
if you're taking it in general, I wouldn't do it. I mean, 1.5 is it's just it's not worth the value to me if you're going to take it
right, the
not on
risk
underdog
if you just
minus
look at the
160.
way it's going to
Yeah,
work, yeah.
yeah. But if you can get it on underdog for 1.5 at flat at the even line, then I like that
Yeah. For sure.
because the
All right.
value's there.
Definitely. I'm cool to, we can always go back to games and everything. I'm cool to move on. We can take a look
Yep.
at this Rockets Hawks game that
Yeah.
let's go over here. Rockets Hawks. This one, man, this is pretty exciting for fantasy, for props. I mean, the both these teams involved in some high scoring games.
Oh yeah.
Injury wise, Jayshawn Tate is out. Not really anything like super significant down here, and Bogdanovich obviously out as well. For me, I think that there's been some reports about Sengun potentially not being in the starting lineup. I don't know if you saw those recent reports. Those are always really tough, right? You see stuff like that a lot, so I don't want to read too much into it. But just kind of looking at the points lines, you've got Jabari Smith. It looks like we don't have underdog lines for this one yet.
Oh yeah.
We can still talk about some of these games. I'm gonna do a quick click through on some of these 7:30 and see what points lines.
Yeah, that's not
Give me
shit.
your while
Again,
I'm clicking through these. Tell me
yeah.
your favorite that we've talked about. I know we've gone through, Pistons, Magic.
Of the previous games.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna look really stupid because people are gonna call me biased, but I think that Ivy 10.5 is just really nice.
Yep.
Just off of pure aggression and probably usage that he's gonna see. Again, I think he could go like 3 for 10 and hit that line. So I think 10.5 is too low for Ivy. I really like I like Beal assists or even like a PRA if you
Yep.
want to go with that because his points I think are at 23.5 if I remember correctly. So I don't hate Beal involved there. KP that game like you said should be higher scoring against the Pacers. The Hallie lines, again, to reiterate, I just think it's kind of a mid-season form line, so I'm
Yeah.
not in love with him yet. We do expect him to be that good, so if it's right out of the gate, then beautiful, but might be a little rich for my blood right now. But
Yeah.
I like, Cole Anthony rebounds. I like Ivy points. I like a lot of the rookie points. I don't know what's happening to me, but Jabari Smith,
No,
even in this
yeah.
game, looks like he's at 13 or 14.5.
The
I
situation is
think I like
pretty
him,
nice,
but
yeah, and we
yeah.
can we're gonna pull up here. Pelicans Nets, shout out on the Harden call last night. Yeah, Kenyon, the Harden points, man. It was the first half cash, right?
First half casher, yep.
Yeah,
No big deal, no big
he
deal.
was
Don't just
he was
you know, don't-
money
don't-
last night, man.
Yeah, just got, I don't know, a little more aggressive, shot the ball a lot more, looked better, committed to the team, kind of stuff that you'd heard me say like months ago, but it's all right. No, don't worry about
Hey,
it.
we're both big early Harden fantasy guys.
Yeah.
So shout out to
Yeah.
all the people
One
who,
game.
yeah, it's
One
one
game.
game, but it's amazing to see from a guy who
Against the
people
best
were
defense
like,
in the East, but it's one
yeah,
game.
it's so funny. We don't have to get too into it, but it's so funny to me the people who are like, oh, Harden's gonna just be a 19-10 guy, and it's like, have you watched James Harden like at all over the past 6
70 years.
years, right? Like, what part of you is like he can't average 8-9 assists
Yeah.
and also drop
Shoot anymore.
30 bombs? So yeah, we'll get into Pelicans Nets.
Oh, okay. Let's do it.
So this one has some underdog lines. You got Ben Simmons at
Exciting game.
9.5 points. This is an interesting game.
Ben Simmons at 9.5 points.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
do I ever want to take that? Is just the most I have no idea line that I've ever seen.
All right.
So funny to me.
He looked okay. It's just kind of like
It's 5 layups. It's 5 layups, man.
yeah, exactly. It's
And that's. I mean, I wouldn't.
you're
play
just the thing is you're just on the floor, and I think Ben Simmons can be pretty productive for the Nets, right? But I think for me it's I think he'll have games like that, right, where he can have like decent scoring games. He's very aggressive, but you're just on the floor with Kyrie and KD.
Yeah.
So for me, you look at KD Kyrie lines at 20. We got 25.5 underdog here for Kyrie, 27.5 for KD. Where you at, man? The Nets were pretty bad at home last season against the spread, and
Yeah, that's another game that I do think is going to be higher scoring. I think they both have decent matchups. I like Kyrie more than KD as far as matchup goes. I think McCollum's
from a scoring perspective.
Yeah, I think. I mean, last year the Pelicans weren't great defensively from the guard position, and
Yeah.
I think Kyrie and McCollum's nice. If they bring in Dyson Daniels, could be a little bit of an issue, but I think Kyrie's too good.
Yeah,
Herb
it's
Jones
tough
can
to-
give Durant some problems, but again, Durant's just too good. Like at some point, it's like okay, matchups matter, but when you're talking about a guy like Kevin, do they really matter?
Yeah.
27.5 for him, 25.5 for Kyrie. That's tough, dude. I think I like Kyrie a little bit more. Maybe that's just me thinking back to the Nets in the playoffs last season and seeing how much Kevin Durant absolutely stunk at the end of last season.
Yeah, I think with that being said, and I'm gonna fade the player here and head right into, instead of you got KD there, do you go with budget Brandon Ingram in KD, or do you go with Brandon Ingram at 21.5? I think the Pelicans guys are interesting, right? Because obviously Zion looks good to go for the most part. There's some kind of, he had some kind of lead up, potential injury, might miss, but I expect him to be good to go. Are these Pelican lines a little scary for you? You've got CJ, BI, and Zion looking like they're all going to be 20-point, 21-point line guys.
Yeah, I think my instinct is BI. I'm already going to be looking over at the assists, though. I like what I saw from BI and Durant assist-wise last year, and so I'm interested to see what those lines are at. I think that is probably my more favorite play because I think McCollum, Zion, and BI are all going to be up there in scoring, so it does feel a bit more like a coin flip as to who's a hot hand, what the matchups look like, what the schemes are for these teams tonight, but assist wise, if this game is going to be high scoring, your 230 total, like Vegas says it will be, like BI at 4.5 assists and 5 flat on underdog.
Yeah.
More than McCollum at 4.5. I don't hate Durant at 5.5. Durant is another one that's going to be very interesting to see, right? Because we saw his assists take a big bump last season, near the end of last season, but that was without Ben Simmons. So that'll be a thing where maybe we fade KD tonight to see kind of how Ben Simmons looks in his first full game with the new lineup. So I'll probably fade Durant, but those assist lines are one to look out for sure on this Nets team with Simmons and Durant there.
Yeah, I prefer KD's assist line to Kyrie based off of what I kind of feel like I saw from KD last season, where the cast is going to look pretty similar, right? Outside of obviously Ben Simmons being the crazy addition. But yeah, I think Ben Simmons 7.5 line is just pretty high.
But I actually kind of like the under shout there.
Yeah.
Underdog got that at 7.5. I kind of like the under there again
Yeah.
because
The
I'm not sure
value's
what it's going
there.
to look like in general. The value's there, and also I don't know how much I love the idea of Simmons facilitating to like a like a catch and shoot of Durant and Irving. Right, these are two guys that are very much ISO players, right?
Yeah.
Off the dribble players. Obviously, they're some of the best scorers in the league, so they can shoot off the pass. But I think it'll be interesting to see how that all kind of works out. So I would probably go on the under on Ben Simmons 7.5 assists. There's just too many question marks where I feel like that's a little bit safer. So yeah, you're getting some value there on underdog. I like
Yeah.
that 7.5 under there.
It is so scary too, I will say. Like we did see, you don't want to read too much into the preseason, but I think Simmons had like he had like 6 assists in like 15 minutes, and it's just so tough because he's one of those guys where it would not blow me away if he has like a 6 points, 11 assist night, just because it's kind of like what Simmons does. But I do agree that it's one of those that's way too high to look at for the over.
I just think
life in the chat.
I think there's just more questions about
Yeah.
him covering that over. I think there's a lot more questions to bring up and factors that are unknown. Where the under feels like there's a lot of scenarios that play out to kind of cater to the under there, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. Definitely. Yeah, and I do like, like you had mentioned, that BI assist line that at 5 flat. I really like him to get 5 assists at least offensively. I know Zion's there, but I think
he did really well assist-wise with Zion even in the lineup. He had good stats. So.
Right, too. Yeah, I think he's just one of those guys who's just such a good offensive weapon, and I think he kind of showed it in the playoffs as well that he's willing, and with some more weapons, definitely some potential there.
Yeah.
We can. I don't know if there's any rebound props that excite you. I know we've actually had underdog hasn't had some of the rebounds. We've got them here. I think you got KD 6.5. Don't have a Zion. BI 5.5. A lot of these rebound lines for these guys just kind of feel like, whatever. Underdog does have Val at over 10.5, which is pretty good value for him. But we talked about, are you afraid of Val?
I think it'll go down a little bit. I think, especially in this game too, I don't love the 10.5. There's so many good rebounders like Simmons, Claxton, Durant, BI, Zion.
No Drummond, but still, I agree.
The spacing is going to look a lot different too, right? With Zion, as far as offensive rebounds go, I think that takes a hit for Valanciunas. The spacing is going to look a lot different. He's not going to be camping under the basket when you have Zion doing his thing down low. So I think the offensive rebound production goes down for Valanciunas. Defensive rebounds is just a matter of probably minutes, really, right? I think Zion might not be. I think Zion might be looking more as a transition, right? So when you're under the basket, it's a big thing for people to look out for. That's like why Russell Westbrook was so big in high rebounds, is because they wanted Russ to crash the boards defensively, grab the ball, start transition. I think if Zion, and defensively, I don't know if Zion's going to be so heavy on the glass defensive rebounds, because I think they're going to want him in transition. So if he grabs the ball, defensive rebounds, that kind of makes it really awkward to transition into the offense when Zion's not down the court and has the ball in his hands. So it's a really weird mix. I'm fading the rebounds for Valanciunas big time. I'm kind of fading Valanciunas overall this season for fantasy as well.
We're in the same boat there, yeah.
Yeah, so as far as rebounds go, like you said, it is kind of meh. I don't hate Durant at 6.5, but again, I could see Durant have like a weird 22.
Yeah, I'm cool.
Game,
right, so. I'm cool to move on from these, and move on to another game. I feel like a lot of the rebound lines are just kind of like, just kind of like, whatever. Let's see if Will here can find the Chicago game. We got it right here. Yo, can LeBron still get a ring? Not with this Lakers team. It's pretty low hanging fruit, but we've said it all off season, man. That roster, it just does not make sense to me. And I know there's reports of like, hey, Buddy Hield destination. Like, I think they just need better 3-point shooting so bad alongside LeBron. And that roster, it just does not excite you outside of LeBron and AD. Like, I like some of those players, but it's just, I don't know. It's not even like they need a third star to me, right? To me, it's just like they need like reliable 3-point shooting. You saw LeBron, that report about like, oh, we're not gonna be a shooting team. It's just like, oh, jeez.
Imagine that supporting cast around Giannis. Like, imagine the
Yeah.
upheaval we'd have about
Right.
like
Yeah.
that.
Right. You don't have a Drew Holiday. Like you don't like. Yes, you don't have an AD for Giannis, but like Drew and Middleton offensively can really handle themselves and shoot the ball well from three, and that does wonders. Right. We've seen a Giannis be an amazing assist guy because he's surrounded. It's not even just Drew and Middleton, right? Like you got guys like Pat Connaughton and even the bigs. Portis will shoot three. Lopez will pull. I mean, Lopez, I don't want to use him as a 3-point example, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like there's guys that can hit shots. Steph Curry really changed the game. Yeah, and it's like, I mean, the game had kind of already evolved, right? Where, I mean, Steph's in his own world, right? I don't think people are going to be able to do Steph things. Trey does a little bit, whatever. But the game has just changed where you need to be able to space the floor. And spacing the floor is one thing. And another thing is being able to have reliable shooting. And when you have a guy like LeBron who's able to like make opportunities further. I mean, LeBron didn't shoot great to start that game either, but LeBron's just able to open up the floor for so many guys. And when him and AD are doing their thing and you can't rely on, a Kendrick Nunn to shoot the ball well from three, or, all these other guys, Lonnie Walker, to be like super consistent. It's tough, but we can move on here. Chicago, Miami. Lonzo Ball we knew was going to be out for Chicago, but Zach LaVine out. So this is it's kind of an interesting one. And then Oladipo for the Heat. From a points perspective, I think when you see Zach LaVine out, I think your eyes just go to, hey, where's DeMar's line at? But I think you also have to be aware that yes, no LaVine, but it's Miami, man, and they lose PJ Tucker, but they're still a very strong defensive team overall. You like DeMar at 26.5?
I was looking at the assist lines because there's something that I really like there. So sorry, I'm a little.
No, you're good.
DeMar's line at 26.5 with no LaVine. I do kind of like it, but the fact they're playing the Heat in probably a slower paced game, I don't know if I do. It's tough, right? Because it's like really good defense, slow pace, probably low scoring game, but so much usage. We saw what he did without LaVine, like you said, and so. I don't know. Do we like it just based off of sheer usage, or
he's looked good in the preseason, right? And I think that's the big thing is like, can DeMar repeat what he did last season? Because last season, that stretch where DeMar was amazing and LaVine was out, you look at this line and you go, over. It's in my lineup already. I'm not even thinking about it.
But it start with a 3. Then I'm going
right. Is it a 2? Cool. 29. Who cares? Get it in there. But it is the Heat, and so you talked about assist lines. Was DeMar one of those assist lines you liked?
It's Sumu. Call me crazy.
Okay. Yeah, starting point guard.
Starting guard, regardless of the LaVine news, and now LaVine is out. I know DeRozan can facilitate as well, but I think 4.5 is way too low for how much Sumu is going to have to play. All of a sudden LaVine's out, so Caruso's starting with Sumu. It's not like Sumu is going to come out like in 6-minute stints for Caruso anymore, playing together. Yeah. And Sumu will be the ball handler. I really like it at 3.5, 4.5. 3.5 is incredible. Obviously, you can see by the lines there. I really like it at 4.5 too. I think that line's going to move up. And also, breaking news: the Jaden Ivey line is already moved. So
really, was it at 12?
11 or 11.5. They got to stop watching the stream, man. They know, man. They said this kid called it on Harden. You gotta keep an eye on him.
Yeah, you got your guard points lines. Yeah. No, I don't hate the Dosunmu call. I think you saw a decent amount from him last season. DeMar, the value is not there at the assist line. I think the assist line is kind of like, for me, is more of a nod to like what Miami does defensively to guys like DeMar. But I still think DeMar can get his.
That's the point.
So I'm not like super against his points line versus his assist line. It's just one of those things where it's like, in my opinion, I just think about, you look at this game, and unless it is a decent blowout in the Heat favor, which could happen, like
it really could.
Completely honest, it's a 7.5 point spread, and Chicago, I'm sorry, they were good last season. They have been known to fold against good teams, right? Like, let's be real. We saw that last season consistently and in the playoffs. So For me, it would not shock me, but I think in my mind, I go, this game is close enough that DeMar plays normal minutes. It's within, 6, 7, 8 at the end of the game. I think DeMar has 27 at least. He has one of those like 26, 27 games. So I think I do lean his points a little bit. And these other guys, what about like a Jimmy Butler at 4.5? Like pretty good value on the over. Do you like that assist line for Jimmy? Even though there were stretches we didn't really see it from him in the playoffs. He obviously was scoring a decent amount. Lowry's healthy. He's had an impact on Jimmy assists, but do you like it at 4.5 still?
Yeah, I do. I like Jimmy's 4.5. I also really like Bam at 2.5 or 3. There's good value on both lines there. For other books compared to Underdog, you get some really good value on both Jimmy and Bam. It's a matter of, it being kind of low scoring, kind of impacting that. But at the same time, I like the shooters around Butler and Bam to kind of help with those assists. Like Tyler, I think Harrell has a decent game tonight.
Yeah,
and I like Bam at 4.5 a lot. I like him to get 5. I also like Bam at 3. So if you lean one way or the other, you're like, no, I disagree. I don't like Bam. Then slam Jimmy, and vice versa. I think both of those can easily hit their assist lines, like because they're so low. You don't need a high scoring game to get 5.
I was peeking down here at Kyle Lowry. Part of my brain was like, is there any chance Lowry's at like 5 flat? And
it's a good line too, man.
It's a really good line. It's the values on the over. Lowry, say what you will about his performance offensively. Lowry is just, even at his age, he is just able to facilitate pretty well, and he's got pretty good on-ball usage for the Heat, right? If you just look at kind of the way their offense runs, like obviously Jimmy gets his, but I mean Lowry still gets to play that traditional point. So I really don't hate that line for Lowry at all. That's probably one of my favorite assist lines, honestly.
Yeah, it's a good line, which makes it harder because I like all 3 lines. And so
right, somebody's got to score. They can't. Mean, they could all, right? They've got some shooters, but Harrell got his bag. Do you think we see more from Harrell, or do you think he's just maybe just rotationally he still kind of does what he did? He's just kind of in the role.
He had a really good preseason.
Yeah.
I think it's still kind of the same rotation because they still have Duncan there. I think they're going to still kind of split those guys up.
Right, especially in the regular season too. I think it'll be tough to kind of predict.
And Caruso is a pretty good defender on Harrell for tonight.
That's true. Definitely.
But I think my favorite play in this game is just Miami -7. I just don't like the Bulls against good teams. Like you said, last year
it's in Miami too, I believe.
It is. Yeah, it's in Miami. I think Miami matches up pretty well with them. Right. Chicago's a little banged up.
Bam and Vooch, the way they can guard DeMar, no Zach LaVine. It's definitely like
this could be. Yeah, I think this could be a blowout. I think I like Miami -7.
All right. With that being said, you like Jimmy Butler rebounds 6.5?
Not as much. I like his assists more. Rebounds isn't a bad shout though for a lower scoring, good defensive game.
Yeah, I think for me it's just I really do not like Bam at 9.5. I know, like you don't hate it. It's pretty high, man. And we've seen Bam really just not be the rebounder that you expect him to be. Even through last season and in the playoffs as well. Not that
weird end of the season last season.
It really was too, and I don't want to read too much into it and kind of like use that as being predictive for this season, because I know that's usually what you look at, right? You're like, what happened last season? You would look at what Bam did, and you would say 9.5 under all day. But yeah, I would definitely lean under, but I'm not. I hate betting rebounds, so you won't catch me doing that.
No, it's not a terrible play, but yeah, it is scary. It is definitely a fade. Other rebound lines though, not falling in love with any of these. DeRozan at 4.5, interesting. Lowry at 3.5 is also interesting. What's Lowry's points at? Because I'm curious to see what his PRA is. If his points are low enough, 10.5. See, that's an interesting one. He's got low points line, low rebounds line, really low assist line. So his PRA is probably what, like 20.5, 21.5. Bear with me. I'm looking.
No, I got it right here. Yeah, he's at 20.5 PRA.
Yeah. When you say the number, it seems so high. No, I think assist is probably the play for him.
I think Lowry too. He's the tough thing with him is like you just saw like the playoffs, man, he was not great. And I think offensively, right, when you look at PRA, while I do like his peripheral lines a decent amount, it's just like PRA is still heavily influenced by points. So I don't feel great about him having like a smash scoring game.
Oh no, not at all.
Right.
So yeah,
I think
that makes sense.
that's when the nod is, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yep. No, that's a good point. Thank you for
Agreed.
bringing that up. You're so smart.
Oh, thanks, man. All right, I know we're getting to an hour in. I know a lot of these lines aren't up yet. For some of these. What's that?
Okay, there's one game I wanted to talk about if they had the underdog lines on. They don't. But
yeah, I think we can. Let us know in the chat. I think what we'll do right now is probably go through 3 of the lines that we like a decent amount that are kind of like the early look at lines. If there's any in the chat you guys want to call out, we want to take a look at, would love to hear that. But yeah, I think I'm going to go, we can kind of move around. I know you had talked about it being, moved up on some of the books. I think Underdog had it up here, but this Pistons game, it's tough. It's scary to bet on rookies. I get it. But I like both the rookies in this game. I really do.
The same normal rookie.
I think it's one of those, like, you don't want to bet on it, but I think the spot is pretty good, right? Like, it's not, the Pistons aren't playing the Heat. DC for a second, but we're good. It's looking like a pick 'em on most sites. I do like it at 11.5. And Banchero. I would love it if it had this 14.5. Like, the value isn't there at the higher line, but man, if I like it at 14.5, I kind of like it at 15.5 still. Value isn't there though, so I will shout that out. What other lines do you want to specifically call? I know you like Beal. You liked Beal assists.
I like Beal assists.
Okay, I'm back.
I think.
Yeah, you said
Beal. I think it might be. Yeah, I was saying I like Beal a lot. It's more of a plant the flag pick. It's not like a public claim I really feel comfortable making for everybody to put their money on.
Yeah.
I think I like, honestly, I really like Cole Anthony rebounds a lot at 4 or 4.5. I don't know where you can get it.
Yeah, I think it was 4.5 on Underdog.
Okay. Yeah, I really like that. I think it's going to be a higher pace game. Magic and Pistons, again, like I said, I don't think it's a great defensive game, but at the same time, I don't think it's a great offensive game. So I think there's going to be good rebounding opportunities, and he's a very good rebounding guard and kind of a limited backcourt right now for them. And I also like Dosunmu assists a lot. If you can get it at 3.5, I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
If you get it at 4.5, I still like it. Defensively, it's a little scary, right? Like you said, with Jimmy Butler maybe clamping down DeRozan, who might have to be the guy for his assists, or Vooch or whatever. It's a good defensive team all around for the Heat, so it might be scary, but that line's just really low for how much we should probably see out of Ayo tonight.
Yeah. Like those. Man, I really wish this, this Hawks Rockets game had some of these lines up. That one should be a fast-paced one. I know we can see a lot of these, 13.5 for Jabari.
There's another one that I'll shout out if I can find it here. Just want to double check the line here.
Trae Young at 25.5 against the Rockets. What's up?
So Underdog doesn't have this lineup right now here on this site. But if you're using Underdog and you can see it, Zion is at 5.5 on some books. And if he's at 5.5 or 6 flat on Underdog, if he happens to be there, I think that's worth looking into. Like, again, I like him a lot. I think he can get half of that in offensive rebounds. In a game that should be another higher scoring game, 231 total Pelicans Nets. I think he'll be involved obviously a lot.
Yeah.
So, and he might be guarding Ben Simmons, so he'll be probably around the paint most.
Yeah, I don't hate that one at all. We're not big rebound guys, but that would be a pretty nice line if you do see it at 5.5 or even a 6 flat. That would be pretty nice.
There's just, man, we haven't even dipped our toes into half the slate, so we'll probably be sending out some more of these picks in the Discords, right?
Yeah.
So
definitely appreciate you guys hanging out and watching, and good luck tonight. NBA is back. It really is.
NBA's back.
I'm gonna say that every stream for the next like 3 days, just like so it settles in my brain, man. Feels good.
Christmas Day slate. NBA is back.
Right. All right. Peace out. See you guys.
See ya.